So I thought I'd sit in front of the wood stove again and talk about this pipeline that the government has shut down. Now, I'm sure you've all heard about this, but in case you haven't, I want to talk about that in a little bit. But in the meantime, I thought I'd do what I can to help educate you even more on the wood stove so you can go get one. Wood stoves are just not that big of a deal. They're not hard to install. I don't know if you could do it yourself if you don't have some construction, and I don't know if construction is the right word, if you're good with your hands. I mean, cutting through the roof is kind of a big deal. That being said, there's all kinds of YouTube videos out there on how to do it. I did this one myself. I built a house and I was able to run it. If you get a YouTube video, it does tell you how to do it. If you can use a saw, get all the parts from the Tractor Supply store. It's just not that hard to do. So you can go get a new wood stove like this for about $1,200, $1,300 at Home Depot. Just like this one. Just go to Home Depot. Everybody keeps asking me, what's the brand of my wood stove? It really doesn't matter. This one's already obsolete. They have to improve them each year because of the EPA requirements. I think the company that sold these just decided to change their name and go with a new brand. These are really efficient. I've talked about these in other videos. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that in this video. And I'll put an up next box at the end of this video where you can learn all about this wood stove. These have what's called reburners, little tubes, air tubes in here that light the smoke on fire. So it's burning the smoke, so you're not sending out as much pollution into the environment, if that's what you want to call it, pollution. I really enjoy this. Of course, we live in a tiny house, so our bedroom is right there, our bed. So I can light this up, and this flame through this window is just puts you right to sleep. Now, I know somebody's going to complain about the wood is too close to the stove, because I get that every year. Well, all you got to do is Google this. When I light the stove, I take the vent and I pull it all the way out until this reaches 500 degrees. And I have one of those little laser thermometers you can buy for like $10 on Amazon. And I point it right here on the top, and that gets to 500 degrees. And then I shut it all the way down. And then it starts to cool off and probably gets about 350 to 400 degrees. That's the top. But the sides never get that hot. They only probably get, well, probably not more than 300 degrees at its peak. Wood doesn't even start to smoke and char until 450 degrees. It gets very cool over here. I can touch it. There's nothing going on. It's probably 150 degrees. Right across, behind you on the camera here, is the shower, and it's never gotten above 100 degrees over here. At the ceiling, that's about when it gets to 100 degrees when this thing is really cooking. So we have this little plastic shower. It just doesn't get that hot. It doesn't melt it. Now, the risk is, of course, and this is where you have to be careful, is when you open it up, that sparks don't fly out and hit the wood and you don't see that. When you're lighting it, I always like to leave the door slightly ajar so it can start really getting the chimney hot. That's how the stove really works, is the chimney gets hot and it starts to draw the flame up. Heat rises. So the hotter the chimney gets, the faster the flames get. So when the chimney gets about, I'm not sure, I don't remember, 150, 200 degrees, something like that, I don't remember. Then I shut the door and then it starts to ignite on its own. Now, here's the important part I want to talk about this. Just yesterday, I found one of these stoves. I don't know much about it. I saw 7 pictures of it was in a little cabin, and he was giving it away for free. So if you go on the Facebook Marketplace, you can look for these things. I have this app called Free Stuff. You can download the app from your store, your app store, Free Stuff, and it will tell you all the free stuff being given away in your area. That's how I get all my firewood. That's why I have the app, is because of the firewood. People give away free firewood. Well, they give away these stoves too, and if you're not really worried about the efficiencies of modern day stoves and you just need something to heat with because of the pipeline being shut down, then you could probably find one of these free somewhere. I've seen another one. They were pretty cheap. I think it was, and it had only been used once, maybe not at all. I don't remember. And it wasn't very expensive. $250? I don't remember. But it's just not that expensive if you find these used ones. And if you're not looking for efficiency. It's not like these things are going to go bad. I mean, it'll take 20 or 30 years before these things go bad. Things you want to watch for when you get it is that the seals are in place. If not, you'll have to replace those. And you can get these at your hardware store. We have a hardware store down the road from us a ways, and they sell this in the back section next to all the firewood chimney stuff. And so that seals everything up. And I don't even know how important that is if you just want to get some heat in the house. But when you close the door, you want to be able to put a $1 bill or a $5 bill or $100 bill. And it's such a ridiculous thing. They always say in the comments, I always say $1 bill. Can't you use a $5 bill? Well, if you want, I don't care. Make sure there's no flame in it. So you stick a $1 bill in there, you close the door on it, and then you just do that all the way around. You shouldn't be able to pull that $1 bill out. So now you know it's sealed up. But again, if you're not really worried about efficiencies, that's not a big deal. A lot of people aren't worried about efficiencies. If you can't install the chimney yourself, and you've looked on YouTube, maybe you have a disability, can't get on a roof, whatever it is. Again, if you could hire a handyman around your area, somebody who's got some skills doing things, home improvements, that kind of thing, it really isn't that hard. And then we bought this metal, I think it was $9 a sheet at Home Depot. And you can buy these little spacers on Amazon. I think it's Red Devil or Red something or another. But you can put the firewood backing spacers or whatever. So these little spacers, you can even buy these. You don't have to, you can buy little metal spacers at Home Depot. And then you just screw this in. That gives you an inch space there. And if you use wood like we did for our walls, that's what you have to use. If you're going to use fireproof drywall for your wall, you can use brick or stone or whatever decorative thing you want, but this is what worked for us. And we had to do it because, like I said, our wood is really, it's just pallet wood. That's all pallets right there. So now you got the free firewood and you got the free stove. Now here's the thing is, if you're in a hurry and you want to get rolling this year, it's fall already, we're coming up on October, and you want to get rolling with your wood stove, you may not be able to get dry firewood. Now when I say dry, you'll see in that video on that up next box, you got to have it at 20% or less. It means it's not green, it's cured or seasoned, whatever you want to call it. And oak takes about 2 years. Now there's other firewoods that don't take that long. Poplar is a type of tree that takes about 6 months. Sycamore takes about 6 months. Walnut takes about 6 months. The problem with sycamore, forewarning you, it is a bear to split. It's just an absolute nightmare. So I use them all and I split it by hand. Carolyn uses this manual log splitter, and it's kind of like maybe a ski machine, rowing machine or something. You stand there, and I've demonstrated that before, and you can get those from Harbor Freight. So you don't need a fancy log splitter. It does take some work, but it's good exercise. So if you're out there looking for exercise, otherwise you can buy firewood. And again, it's going to be green. I've never seen anybody give in this area the oak, the hickory, those really hardwoods. People say, well, I just Googled it. It takes a year to dry oak. Well, okay, you Googled it. I did too. And some of your oak will be dry in a year. The rest of it will take 2 years. I know from experience. Hickory is even more dense than oak. Now, cedar, up there in the Northwest, people are going to say, oh, I got cedar, or pine, that's another one, pine, cedar and pine. They're sappy woods, so that means there has a lot of moisture content in them. And that sap doesn't go away. When you burn it, it is going to go up your chimney. It's going to cause creosote in your chimney. Creosote is very flammable. What that is the water binds with the smoke, the materials, and it sticks to your chimney. When your chimney gets to a certain temperature, and when I say temperature, that means a spark can come up, and that spark from your firewood can ignite that, and it can get way above, like 1500 degrees or something ridiculous. I mean, it gets really hot, cherry red, and it can cause your house to catch on fire. We've had 2 chimney fires. Nothing too serious. Well, the first one, I opened the door on the wood stove, and I heard it go, sound like a jet engine. I shut the door and it went out. The second one we had was right at the top where the chimney cap goes on, so the birds and stuff can't get down into the chimney. That thing caught on fire, and the only thing it really did was smoke really bad, but it could have been much worse had we not been home, whatever. So running dry firewood is much better. If you're going to run wet firewood, you're going to have to clean your chimney multiple times a year throughout the winter. Whereas with running dry firewood, you only have to clean it about once a year. But I highly suggest that you do something soon. Fuel prices have went up. Natural gas prices have went up. Everything has gone up in price. Electric prices have gone up. I don't even know how bad it is. I don't have to worry about it. I live off grid. I got some solar panels to run my refrigerator, my tablet, and 2 cell phones. I charge my light. That's all I got. That's all I need. And as far as the refrigerator, I really would like to get rid of that. I have to run the well occasionally, but that's a whole different story. I don't know how bad energy prices is. It's only what I hear. But I suspect they're pretty high, especially depending on where you're at. And we know that over in Europe, people are telling me in my comment sections that it's just unmanageable. Europe is really starting to rely on firewood. I think Germany is talking about they're out of firewood. They just can't find any more anywhere. Poland, I think it's Poland, they started going back to coal. People are lining up miles to buy coal. Wood stoves, in my mind, is the best thing to have. Now, people will say, oh, they pollute so much. If you run it efficiently, there's hardly any emissions coming out of it. But that being said, if you're worried about CO2, everything has a natural life. All of the tree's life, it's soaking up CO2. Then the tree dies, and it starts to rot, and it releases all that CO2. The only thing we're doing, and I admit, is we're releasing that CO2 faster when we burn it. So basically, we're just speeding up the natural life cycle of the wood. But as you know, a pipeline has burst over in Europe. I guess there's another pipeline being ran or is ran, whatever. But my suspicions are that means the United States is going to have to provide more natural gas to Europe. When we do that, we always see prices going up around here. If I'm not mistaken, last winter, winter before last, Texas had a big outage and there was a big problem. And all of a sudden, there was no natural gas to fire up the electric plants. They were out of natural gas. I don't remember all the story, but I remember it was pretty significant. Oklahoma, I think, having problems with natural gas. I think here in Missouri, parts of Missouri was having problems with natural gas. So it can happen in the United States. I know there's so many people who believe, it'll never happen here. They have that hidden faith. 2 things going in their head at once. They know that there's a problem, but they're just going to ignore it. So cognitive dissonance is what they call it, is when you got 2 things going on in your brain. And I think a lot of people just have cognitive dissonance. They see the prices going up, they see the problems happening, and they think, well, for some reason it's not going to happen to me. At least have your stove for a backup. If you don't like wood stoves, just get it for a backup. So if you'll click that up next box, it'll take you to that video I was telling you about where I explained this wood stove in more detail. So I hope I can inspire you to enjoy your dream when it's wintertime, so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.